I'm going to be completely honest here. If you're just looking to get your HTMX application out there, all you need is just a service that will deploy a server for you. Even just a basic Express server can handle 10,000 requests per second, so in most cases, you don't need anything more than that. So what's the point of this video? In certain scenarios where customers are all over the globe, we want to deploy to the edge. This will make sure that each request doesn't have to travel too far in order to be processed, so the whole experience is and feels a lot faster. This is where Cloudflare workers come in. A few weeks ago, I put out a video setting up Cloudflare workers using Bun as the package manager, Hano for the routing, and Drizzle ORM to query a Cloudflare D1 database. We'll now be adding HTMX to that application for the front end, so I suggest you check out that video if you haven't already. If this is your first time hearing about HTMX, I also have a video on diving into the basics of it. But yeah, to get started, if you go to the repo from the previous video, you'll find here a branch which I named feet/HTMX. All you have to do is clone this repo, switch to this branch, and you're ready to go. Let's take a look at what code we have in here. So I just cloned the repo. The first thing you want to do obviously is just run a bun install. So I'll do that. Once everything is installed, all of the errors should be going away. So in this case, the worker types and all of that should be going away. But yeah, the code is pretty standard. If you follow the previous video, then we have the wrangler.toml file, which is just for configuration stuff for Cloudflare. Then we have our drizzle.config. This just tells it where to put our migrations and where our schema is. But if we were to take a look at the code itself, this is where I changed a bunch of stuff. So let's start with the index.tsx. That's probably the first thing that you'll notice. The file extension changed from TS to TSX, but that shouldn't be a surprise to you if you followed my HTMX video. So what's actually different here? We still have our /API. This is where we have the separate endpoints for creating a post or deleting a post or whatever. But now on the /route, this is actually the home page. This is returning an entire page. So you'll see here the home page. This is under pages, the home. So I'll go into this. We're just exporting a new page. This is wrapped in the layout. Not much change there from the HTMX video. So I'm actually importing HTMX through script tags. Yeah, there's ways to import this through npm packages and all of that. I just wanted to keep this simple, so I still have it in a script tag. But if we go back to the home page, all this is displaying is a section to create a new post and then the posts list. If we go into the new post, this is under components. This is just a simple form with an input for the title, an input for the content, and then a submit button. You'll see that this is posting to /API/posts. For the swap, we're adding the new post at the end of the list, so at the bottom, and then I'm still using the JSON extension, so I'm submitting everything as JSON. If we take a look at the posts list, I'm not going to go too much into it. This is pretty standard React stuff. I have the list of posts, I'm mapping over it, and then creating a post component for every single one of them. And then I have other random stuff in here like a submit button. I just wanted it to look a little better. The input itself, I split into a reusable component. So what else do I have in here? I have a folder called functions. In here is just the basic stuff to interact with the database. So I have the get posts, the insert posts. This is just using Drizzle. So for the insert, for example, I have db.insert into the posts table with the values provided in the data, and then I also return the new post that was created. We can quickly actually look at the schema, so I'll go under db schema. So the posts table just has an ID, title, content, created at, and then I'm just exporting some types. So that's db, that's functions, the layout, we looked at it, the pages, components, and then yeah, let's look at the API. So the API itself, I have an index.ts here. I'm just creating a Hano app and then creating a /posts route in here, which actually goes into here, and this is where all the magic happens. So in this case, we have a /API/posts route, and if you do a get to it, what it does is it gets all the posts, and then it returns the post list component using the results. So this is actually what gets returned to the front end. It's some HTML that gets created here on the back end and just displayed on the front end. I also have a post on the same route. This is obviously for creating a post, and I also have some validation in here. But now instead of returning a list of all the posts, we're returning just the one post that got created for the UI to append it at the bottom. Oh, and I forgot to mention, there's also the bindings.ts file. I put it in its own file just because I'm using it in two different places. But yeah, this basically just provides us the context for the D1 database. So yeah, now that we walk through the code, how do we actually get this deployed? So I'll just open my terminal. I'll clear this just so it's more readable. So I'll do clear. And then the first thing that we want to do is actually create a database. So I'll do bun wrangler D1 create. And then we want to provide the name for our database. In this case, I'll just do Cloudflare workers D1. Maybe give it a more specific name. So like HTMX HTMX. So Cloudflare workers D1 HTMX. Once this runs, it'll provide us with some configurations. So we just want to copy this, put it in our wrangler.toml file. So I'll just replace this commented out section, save that, and go back to the terminal, because now we're actually ready to run our migrations on that database. And if you take a look at the package.json, in here I have a couple of scripts. So you'll see the db generate. This actually generates those migrations for us, and that's what we want to run. So I'll go back to the terminal and just do bun run db generate. You'll see now that if we go to the drizzle folder, we have the migrations in here, which just create the posts table. So yeah, all we have now left to do is just run bun x wrangler d1 execute, and then the database name, which is cfw d1 htmx. Since we want to apply this to the local database first, so I'll do -- local, then -- file, and then provide the file for the migration itself. So I'll do /drizzle /migrations / and then 0000 underscore good smasher.sql. And then once this runs, you'll actually notice that we have the .wrangler folder in here. And then if we go into it, it actually created the database for us. And this is just a simple SQLite database that we just have locally stored. So yeah, now we can just simply run bun run dev. This should open up the application for us. So I'll go to my browser, and you'll notice here that we have the title, content, inputs. And once we input something here, it should create a new post. So I'll do code brew, subscribe, and then click create. And there you go. Now we have the new post on the right side. So now with that in place, I actually want to stop this. And the next thing for us is to apply the migrations to our remote database, which is just the one living on Cloudflare. It's basically the same command, but instead of local, we now want to do remote. So I'll just delete that and do a remote. And there you go, executed one command. And before we actually deploy this, I want to just double check things. So I'll just go to Cloudflare, go down to workers and pages. Oh, and you'll notice I now have my blog hosted on Cloudflare pages. If you want to check it out, just go to blog.thecodebrew.tech. I decided to move everything over from Medium, so I built my own blog using Astro. If you're curious about Astro, let me know and I'll make a video on it. But now we can go down to D1, and you'll see the database that we created down here. If I click into it, you'll see that our migration got applied properly, so we have our posts table. And yeah, now that I'm confident that our migration got applied properly, we can just do bun run deploy. This will just deploy it to Cloudflare, and there we go. We now have the URL, and if I go to it, it looks like the little app is now live. So if I just do the same thing, so code brew and then subscribe, the post got created. Sure, we can add some loading states, but for now this is great. We were able to deploy it to Cloudflare workers and get HTMX out there, so now we have a UI for the thing that we built. That's probably one thing that my videos kind of lack. I don't have a UI for a lot of things. I'll try to do better in that, but for now, if we go back to Cloudflare and we look at our workers, we can see our new worker is right here. We can even go down to deployments, and everything here looks proper. Oh, and one thing I forgot to mention, if this was your first time using Cloudflare, you will have to install the Wrangler CLI to get everything working. Basically, you just install it, and once you run it the first time, it'll ask you to sign in, and once you do that, you're basically in. But yeah, if you're looking for a more in-depth video into HTMX, I have a video covering all of that, and also a whole video on Cloudflare workers just setting everything up, so check out that video as well. But yeah, make sure you like and subscribe.